Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rebecca, and today I'm going to be filming a highly requested video. You guys ask me this all of the time, so I decided to do an actual sit-down video about this so I can live on my channel. But I've done a few lives and a few interviews about this, so I will link those above and below for you guys to check out. But today I am going to tell you guys how I transitioned from being a radical, raging feminist to becoming a traditional feminine woman and wife. So if you are excited for this video, please give it a big thumbs up, subscribe down below, and let's get into it. So growing up, I grew up in a very traditional household. I grew up with a mom and a dad. My mom was a homemaker in the most traditional sense. She made breakfast, lunch, dinner. She cooked, cleaned, took care of the house, took care of the kids. And my dad was the breadwinner. He had his own company. He worked every day to provide and protect for the family. And even growing up, I learned from a very young age how to cook, how to clean, how to take care of my siblings. I was a very responsible child when I was growing up, but also growing up, I learned very young about infidelity, and that's kind of what shaped me and molded me into becoming more of a feminist, and I'll talk about that moving forward. And so when I went to high school and going into college, I wanted to be an independent woman. I didn't want to rely on a man's income. I wanted to make my own income. So I chose to go down an engineering route. I'm a mechanical engineer with a robotics major. I'm very handy and I'm very hands-on. So engineering was a route that I wanted to go down. And that led me to becoming an oil and gas engineer. I was in that field for 3 years before starting my first company and moving to New York. But during that time frame, I was very much in my masculine energy. I was very much in my masculine form. I had to be one of the boys. So that is kind of how I creeped into being a more feminist woman. Now, fast forward, I moved to New York to start my first company, and New York was the place where feminism just took its grips into me and just latched onto me, and I adopted a lot of the ideology from New York and my time in New York. I adopted this hustle culture. I was very much an entrepreneur. I was a female CEO. I had my first company and then a second company, and I was raising money. I was in multiple publications. I had made a name for myself in the entrepreneurial space in New York. The more masculine I became, or the more I was in my masculine frame, the less happy I was, the more resentful I was, and the more combative and competitive that I was. Because being a female entrepreneur, being a female CEO, we had to fight for our seat at the table, right? We were constantly being told we needed to do all of these things to get funding. We needed to sit at the table. We needed to be super competitive. And that is the hustle culture, right? That is the dream that so many women seek to lead their lives like, right? And I lived that life. I was that pinnacle woman that people look up to. I had mentees and I had a bunch of women that followed my ways. We were all very successful on paper, but it was very exhausting. It was constantly battling my feminine energy with my masculine energy. And I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm an empath. So meaning I am very emotional, and I also take other people's emotions and absorb it like a sponge. So I'm very in tune with these things. And also I can read a room and pick out bad energy and good energy. I did a whole video on this. I will link that above and below too. But being an empath, being a female CEO, and living in my masculine frame, I was miserable, okay? I was constantly questioning myself. Why am I so emotional? Why can't I just be one of these other women who understand and get it, who can fight and who can pitch the same way that men do? I was always battling myself, and I was always questioning myself why I couldn't be more aggressive or why I couldn't be more competitive. Being in my masculine frame, being the boss babe, being all of these things was so exhausting. And I was just at my breaking point. Okay. I was at my breaking point where I was like, I feel like I've accomplished so much. And I had lived a lot of this career life very, very single because I resented men. I didn't like being around men. And the only men that I had really were my buddies. There was no one that I was essentially attracted to. So I started reading books, right? I started to work on myself. I discovered that I was a highly sensitive person. I got some therapy around that. I discovered that, I am more sensitive to things and I care about people, and that's just how I am. And I learned to embrace who I was, right? Who I was created to be. And that also meant that I stopped partying and I stopped going to these events and I stopped being that socialite and going to these events and stopped hanging out with certain people that would bring me down because I didn't want myself energetically to be diminished. I wanted to build myself up. And I read Jordan Peterson, 12 Rules for Life, and I learned how to take personal accountability for my actions. I knew that I wasn't the victim. I was taught that I had to be the victim, but I resonated with that book so much because I was like, wow, it's definitely in my control, and I'm blaming and shifting the blame onto other people when it's something that I had to do, that I had to put in the work. And all of that was happening at the same time that I met my now husband. And for those of you who maybe do or don't know, my husband and I met. I was at a work meeting and he happened to be in the same building, and we met, and it was like a whole thing. I will link that video above and below for you guys to also check out. From there, it was just, we were inseparable. We were inseparable. And the more I started working on myself, the more I realized I was creating a lot of the issues within our relationship. I would get upset with him on things that he didn't even know he was doing and all of this other stuff. And fast forward, we got engaged. And during our engagement process, we were encouraged to pursue premarital counseling. Now, I didn't want to do premarital counseling, okay? Premarital counseling to me was like, why would we do this? We can just get married. Well, let me tell you, premarital counseling was probably the thing that saved our relationship and taught us the roles of a wife and a husband. Through that work with our counselor, with doing one-on-ones, I realized that I was still very much in my feminist mindset, right? I had worked on myself. I thought I was doing all this stuff. And I realized that I needed to take on the role. If I wanted to be a wife, I needed to take on the role of a wife. And what does that mean, right? A wife is submissive to her husband. My husband leads in my relationship. Does that mean that I am a doormat? Does that mean that I'm a slave to him? Does that mean that I do everything that he says? Absolutely not. And that is what is probably the biggest detriment to women, because that is what they believe. They think that being submissive means that a man can just walk all over you. And if that's the case, no, I'm sorry. I'm here to tell you guys that being submissive, all that means is having trust in your husband's decision-making skills, having that ability to lean on your husband and letting him take the lead in the household. I'm his co-pilot, right? But we both have to share our opinions. We both have to share in the conversation. And then at the end of the day, he makes the final decision. And it's also understanding the roles we play in our relationship, right? My husband is the main breadwinner in our relationship. I make money here on YouTube. It's amazing, but it's definitely more of a supplemental income than it is a true income. Communicating what your roles are before you get married will set the expectations for your marriage. Now, if your husband loves to cook, right, then he can cook the dinners. There's nothing wrong with that. But we have to communicate with one another what these roles are before we sign the dotted line. And so that is what submission, and that's what being a wife to me actually means. It's also taking care of myself. I make sure that I look good for my husband, not because, oh, I need to look a certain way for him, but I want him to want me. I want my husband to desire me. I don't want him to look outside of the house. I don't want him to look to other women. It is so refreshing when you have a man, a masculine man, that can take on his masculine form and I can then move into my feminine form and we can complement each other. We don't compete with each other. We don't. Because once we started competing with each other, we had a lot more issues. Why would I compete with my husband? We're on the same team, right? We're on the exact same team. We are working towards the same goals. That is the beauty of marriage. That is the beauty of relationship. And that's what I want to encourage more women and more men to have. I want to encourage you. You don't have to take the world on your shoulders. You don't have to take on everything and be this powerhouse. It's exhausting. Finding a man that can allow you to rest and allow you to take off some of that load is so amazing that I want other women to understand and realize that and look for that, right? So that is my transition from feminist to more traditional woman or a traditional wife. I'm going to make a video specifically speaking about things that you can do to be more traditional. But I wanted to give this video to kind of just walk you through all of that stuff. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe down below because it really helps my channel. And I'm almost at 50K and I would love to hit 50K by the end of this year. It would mean so much to me. And yeah, guys, I will see you in my next video. Bye.